Hello and welcome to The Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Rakhee Bakshee. This is a show which gives you deep insight into the life, career and vision of a leading personality. And this time on the show, we have a special guest, a senior advocate, a veteran parliamentarian, senior BJP leader, and currently the leader of opposition in Rajya Sabha, Mr. Arun Jaitley. Welcome to the show, sir. And first of all, let me congratulate you. You've got the honor of the outstanding parliamentarian this time for the current year.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
So how does it feel, sir?
Well, there's a stage in life where you feel happy, but they come in your normal stride. You don't get particularly excited about these things.
What would you say, sir, are the virtues for being a good parliamentarian?
Well, I think parliamentary debating and parliamentary speaking is very different from what you speak outside the house. Mm-hmm. You can't be a rabble-rouser in parliament. You can't decide what to say depending on how much applause you will get. Because parliament, you are not applauded.
Sir.
You have to punch it with arguments. Mm-hmm. The arguments must have seriousness. They must have substance. Good parliamentary speaking should never be excessively partisan.
But do you think, sir, is that happening now? Or do you feel worried sometimes, the kind of decline, let's say, in the level of dignity and maturity that you were talking about being witnessed in the House now?
I don't share the view that there is a decline in Parliament. The only disturbing thing in Parliament is that proceedings get disturbed a bit too frequently. You can use parliamentary disturbance or obstructionism in the rarest of rare cases as a mode of parliamentary communication. Mm-hmm. You are not being allowed to raise an issue. A voice is being gagged. The government is not agreeing to something. Mm-hmm. So to make your presence felt, you may temporarily obstruct. But as I said, that has to be rarest of rare cases. That can be an only exception. That can't be the rule. But for that one fact, mm-hmm. when debates do take place, and they take place quite frequently, I am one of those. I'm not cynical. I think Indian parliamentary debating is exciting. Mm-hmm. It has a
but
remember
the days of Vajpayee ji, in fact, for example.
Every generation reminds you of the virtues of the predecessor because the predecessors had some extraordinary qualities in them. Mm-hmm. But then every generation will throw up its own kind of people. Vajpayee ji was once in a generation. There have been many others also who have been exceptionally good. And I am sure politics and parliament also abhor vacuum. So when those men of great eminence are not there, they will obviously throw up somebody else.
You just celebrated 60 years of parliament, sir. So how would you look at this democratic journey that we are seeing now?
Well, I've seen two basic changes. The first change I find is that in the initial years, the whole emphasis was on national unity, sovereignty. And the first 20, 30 years, everybody was concerned. Now I think those concerns have been fairly and squarely settled. Mm-hmm. Now regional aspirations are on the rise. Coalition governments are there, coalition politics is there.
Is that a problem,
smaller parties. No, that's a reality. You can't say it's a problem or not a problem. That's a reality. And therefore, we've moved on from sovereignty to federalism as representing a national aspiration. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you will find that Tamil Nadu party is one day very active, the UP party is very active on another day, the Bengal party is very active. So those kind of regional issues also have a fair amount of play. The second, I think we started as a poor nation. We are now on a growth trajectory. Mm-hmm. And therefore, there's a lot of economics as far as parliament is concerned. How to grow expeditiously, how to expedite growth rates. So today, coming back to your first question, mm-hmm. today you can't just talk politics and get away with it. You must have a fair idea of national security issues. You must have an idea of foreign affairs.
Sir, another point I would like to make, there is this press gallery number which is swelling now. You have telecast, proceedings are getting telecast live. So members are trying to vie for attention. There's this kind of scenario also. Do you agree that it is being seen?
That can lead to two situations. One, it can lead to people indulging in sensationalism so that you catch the eye. The other is a more positive effect. The quality of your performance must move up. The kind of arguments you address the propriety in your behavior, your turn of phrases, your expressions, so the kind of industry and hard work you put into it must get into it. For instance, some people when they prepare, they bear in mind that the rest of the electronic media is not going to spend 1 hour on your speech. It may pick up 3 sentences.
Do you see a change, sir? I mean, how would you look at it?
I think the media gaze on what's happening in Parliament has a positive advantage. Today, when serious debates take place, you have 20 channels suspending their normal programs and switching over and telecasting Parliament debates. That itself is a tribute to Indian Parliament. Secondly, I think most people in Indian Parliament speak extempo. They have points written and they develop their arguments with the flow. If you go to other countries, including in England, you'll find that a large number of speakers just come and read speeches. So that's far more monotonous. Thirdly, I think the media gaze also has an impact that people try and improve their performances. So your expression, your argument, your turn of phrases.
But the media is also focusing on the rising disruptions, which is a matter of concern also. And do you think that here, BJP as a principal opposition party, should in fact try and engage more in dialogue, discussion, debate, which sometimes does not?
Well, I think it's not fair to identify it with one party or the other. For instance, in the session which is through, we are in the mid-session break. There's hardly been a disturbance which has been caused by any of the major parties. It's been regional parties and their issues which have really caused the disturbances. So I think, as I said earlier, you can use disturbance or obstructionism as a weapon, but in the rarest of rare cases. If it's used too frequently, it hurts parliamentary debate. I, for instance, am of the very strong opinion that it should be avoided as far as possible. And my reason for avoiding it is that these days when you disturb, even over a particular issue, your issue may get a 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph coverage in the print media, or maybe a 1 sentence reference in the electronic media. But if you use the same time for highlighting that issue in terms of a debate, and it's an interesting debate, the extent of reach through the media to your own constituents is going to be much higher.
So you still have optimism and lots of it.
It pays to debate in Parliament. It doesn't pay to disrupt Parliament.
Before Mr. Arun Jaitley became a BJP leader, he was an active ABP student leader. We'll talk about early years of his life in this short segment, which starts after the break. Welcome back to the show, and we are talking to Mr. Arun Jaitley. Your early years, sir, you spent your childhood in Narayan Vihar. Your father was a lawyer. How was it like? Can you share some of the moments of your childhood?
Well, it was a very normal childhood. These were the early decades after independence. I used to go to school. Then I graduated, went to college. I went to the Delhi University.
But St. Xavier's is something that you have written that, most memorable moments of your life.
Yeah, school's always exciting, but school is regimented, school is disciplined. You're into studies, sports, friends, associations. But I think your real personality gets thrown up when you're in college. You break away from that regimentation, so you get a chance to get into the activities which interest you. For instance, I was interested in politics, I was always interested in sports, I was always interested in debating, and I was a part of the student unions in my college, in the university. Now, all this then help to shape your personality. So it's really the university career which puts you on the trajectory that you want to be.
And there were friends that you remember?
Oh, I had a large number of friends, both from school. I still am in touch with a very large number of them, spread all over. Some of them are lawyers. Not many are in politics, but people are in business, people are bankers, people are in various industries.
Yes, sir. But when you pursued law, did you think that there was a career in politics that was shaping up for you somewhere?
When I was a law student, I was already in politics. In fact, I was a part of the JP movement. Emergency was declared. I was in jail for 19 months during my law studies. I passed my law examinations after being released from detention during the emergency. So I was in that sense already in politics. I was not sure whether I'll get into politics in a big way, but I was very clear once I studied law that my first priority would be to grow as a lawyer. I continued my association first with the ABVP for some years and then with the BJP. And as I grew in law, then the extent of time I had for politics also increased.
Sir, and you held a number of very significant portfolios during the NDA government. And today, when there is a talk of corruption, I mean, one would say that corruption doesn't have a period. I mean, it has been there and it's going on, which is a major concern once again. What's your take on that?
I think it's undergone a change. When in 1991 we delicensed, we thought this will be the end of corruption. Because you'll have a free market economy, the best will excel. But then areas of corruption changed. For instance, today municipalities, land-related, mining-related, municipal permissions, environmentally related permissions, governmental discretions, allotment of natural resources. Now, instead of licensing, as in the pre-91 regime, it is these areas where corruption really has increased. And my one sentence take is, the moment this government of men, and because of men there are discretions, is replaced by a government of rules, where there is no discretion, I think you could probably reduce a large part of corruption.
So your model of governance would be what, sir?
You see, my conception of an ideal government is, instead of allowing discretions to men, you have strict regulation where the rules will determine as to how permissions are to be granted. For instance, in terms of natural resources, I'd let auctioning determine the market rates. I'm not a great one for keeping discretions with the government, because whichever party is in power, you will always have the kind of people who will abuse discretions.
So you talked about, I mean, let me come back again a little bit to the parliament once again. There seems to be a certain kind of a pattern. There is some kind of revelation, let's say CAG does it, then there's demand, there's shouting, there is talk for either having a JPC or some committee actually focusing on that. There are adjournments, maybe other things. But don't you think, I mean, why should it become a pattern? I mean, why there are rules,
see,
procedures?
If there is an important allegation of corruption, if your institutional mechanisms are in place, that is, the PAC is allowed to do its job, the CBI is an independent agency, there will be a redressal against corruption. If you have those systems in place, you'll never have unrest in the society. Unfortunately, you start subverting these institutions.
So
2G, the PAC has still not been able to finalize its report. And on a large number of cases, you use investigative agencies or you misuse them in a particular manner. Now, that doesn't help.
So the Lokpal bill would be the answer.
You see, the Lokpal bill will create an important overseeing mechanism. It will create an ombudsman. It will probably put the fear of redressal in the minds of people and therefore reduce corruption, because the levels of accountability will increase. Will it completely eliminate it? I'm still keeping my fingers crossed.
Yes, sir. Talking about some of the recent issues, sir, on the Italian Marines thing issue, you in fact said that, and you used a Bond film dialogue, which was reported also, and you said that this is an enemy action, the third level actually, and you said that diplomatic niceties should be avoided. But diplomacy actually is the key, sir. We can't forget that.
You see, I think behind diplomacy, it is a threat of coercive action. If you simply think that you can persuade them by a dialogue to bring those people. You see, what happened to Mr. Quattrocchi? He disappeared and landed up in Italy. What happened to the helicopter deal? You have evidence there, our chaps came back empty-handed. And that's when I used the dialogue and I said, third time, they again do it. You give an undertaking to the Indian Supreme Court and then you disappear. Is it merely the threat of the Supreme Court? Probably it is. But is it only that? No. Is it the threat that India is going to take very serious action in terms of future defense orders? Is India going to take coercive action against the gentleman who gave the undertaking? Probably yes. So it's a combination of several factors. And how does a country which swears by the rule of law, one of the most ancient civilizations, the Roman civilization, you give an undertaking to a court, you literally abduct people and take them away and said they are not going to come back. Now the entire diplomacy had to be backed with that, all those coercive steps. And it's the threat, cumulative threat of all this, that they thought probably it is cheaper. It will cost less if you get back. face trial, and then find out what the consequences.
But sir, foreign policy, when it comes to our neighbors, or to be it Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Maldives also refer to, and other such nations, don't you think that everybody should come together in a strong, unanimous voice?
We should all come together for the right cause. We can't come together for the wrong cause. For instance, if the Prime Minister of India says that we must talk to Pakistan irrespective of Pakistan stopping terrorism or not, then we certainly must not come together. We must then oppose the government of India. So if the Prime Minister of India says, yes, till such time that Pakistan resorts to terror as an instrument of state policy, we are going to draw the red lines very squarely. Fair enough, we must all speak in one voice. If on Kashmir, the Prime Minister takes a firm position vis-a-vis Pakistan, we must speak in one voice. If on Bangladesh you arrive at a composite deal with them, it's possible that we speak in one voice. On Myanmar, we normally spoke in one voice. On Nepal, we can't be seen hobnobbing with the ultras there. Almost during the UPA 1, the policy was outsourced to one of the allies of the government.
So there should be that kind of right space. That's what you mean.
That's the right space.
We are talking to Mr. Arun Jaitley, heading for a very short break now. We'll come back. Welcome back to the show once again. We are talking to Mr. Arun Jaitley. Sir, you're one of the chief strategists for the party, that is BJP. Looking at the future days ahead, how are you looking at Karnataka, which is going to the polls?
Well, we have a government in Karnataka. We've completed our 5 years. It was the first BJP government in South. We certainly have suffered a slight setback in as much as a section of the party moved away for the wrong reasons, because we wanted some strong action against questionable conduct. And therefore, that really is a challenging situation for us, but we've regrouped our party together and we hope to do reasonably well.
But there are problems, as you're saying. So
no, you see, if a small section of the party moves away, but I must say it's only a small section, and therefore the rest of the party is grouped up and grouped up quite well.
Talking about, you referred to coalition politics, do you think it's here to stay?
Well, that's a reality. I've always maintained, I said in an article recently, or in one of my speeches recently, that the days of very tall leaders and very tall majorities, where one party gets 300, 400 seats, is now over. And therefore, the optimum capacity of the two major national parties, either of whom can anchor a coalition, their highest capacity is in the vicinity of about 200 seats. And therefore, you will always need allies. And the federal character of Indian politics is such, it's good to look for allies. The extent of glue that you have, that more people can stick to you, the better it is for you.
So are you looking for new combinations and allies, sir? Recently we saw Sushma ji was praising Mulayam ji on some issue.
Well,
also Mulayam ji praised Advani ji. I mean, do you think
these are all parliamentary niceties. The question of BJP and Samajwadi Party ever doing political business just doesn't arise. And therefore, I think we are diametrically opposite. We are completely opposed to the kind of politics Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav and the Samajwadi Party represent. And therefore, there is no question of our ever doing politics jointly with them. Having said that, in terms of NDA and expanding in other NDA in terms of other non-Congress allies, we would love to do that. Samajwadi Party consistently has provided oxygen to a corrupt UPA government. So where is the question of Samajwadi Party having any non-Congress credentials left?
So do you think that, as everybody's saying right now, and it's just the saying, but do you think there would be early polls? I mean, the indications.
Well, I think this government has run out of steam. With the Trinamool Congress gone, the DMK gone, I think they are running out of allies. They are now literally on their last legs with outside support.
So are you prepared?
Well, we certainly are prepared. The kind of atmosphere that exists against the government itself is a great preparation for us.
Talk about some other states and Bihar, which is a very crucial state, sir, and you've got the task of now keeping both Mr. Nitish Kumar and JDU intact, especially when it comes to designating Mr. Modi as the next PM from your party. So how do you think it's a tough task?
Well, it's the BJP as a principal party will decide on its candidate. We'll certainly consult our allies, and JDU is a very important ally. We'll consult them. We'll factor all views before we take a decision. Politics is not about everything about comfort, and we are not a dynastic party that somebody from the family takes over. We are a democratic party, and therefore we'll have to respect what popular aspirations are, what our cadres want, what the people want.
Are you hinting that he could be one?
Well, I have not for a moment hinted on any name. But in the due course, after discussions, we'll come out with a name, and I hope not only that we survive as NDA, we'll expand the NDA.
But JDU seems to be a little kind of on a shaky ground in terms of...
They have taken a position, but they'll have to blend it with the political realities, and we'll also try our level best to make sure that we keep our relationship with them intact.
BJD seems to be coming ahead, sir.
Well, these are only kite flyings which are taking place, and therefore, to say that any indication, there are parties which occupy the non-Congress space in various states. So if we put out a good non-Congress combination in place, those parties will naturally have to ally with us, and we'd welcome that.
A very recent issue now, Sanjay Dutt, and the move right now, the kind of movement to get him pardoned is on. Do you agree with that, sir, that there should be a pardon in such a case?
Well, it's anybody's right to ask for it. But then when the executive, through the governor or the president, recommends it, they have to apply various considerations in mind. And therefore, when you grant it in an isolated case, you'll probably have to exercise the same power in every other case. And I think it's a decision which the government will take with great care, because these things are generally not done.
Talking about terrorism, sir, and this laws that are kind of being looked at, NCTC, how would you take a look at it?
Well, I've written on the NCTC, I've spoken on it. I'm in favor of NCTC, but NCTC must coexist with federal politics of India. Law and order, police is a state subject, public order is a state subject. Therefore, you can't remove that from the state list and now say a central agency will discharge all these functions. The NCTC must be an anti-terrorism key organization. It must be an intelligence organization. It must be a capacity building organization. It must aid and assist the states in delivering. But the law and order function is that of the states. The police function is that of the states. Therefore, you'll have to blend the two together.
So again, coming back to democracy, how do you see the road ahead?
Well, one thing I'll tell you, the greatest success of India in the last 65 years is where democracy stumbled all over the world in the 50s and the 60s. Despite poverty, despite frustration, we survived. We've strengthened. We now need to improve the quality of our institutions.
So I was reading, and you have a very extensive website also where you say, my journey does not end here. So what is the journey like for Mr. Arun Jaitley?
Well, I am in public life, and my journey in public life is to be a part of Indian democracy and strengthen Indian democracy. What comes your way will come your way, and you can't really predict that.
No, but your own role, I mean, you've seen this journey, and you've played long innings, as they say, in politics.
Well, I have no particular ambition, and therefore I must reach there and stop. I have no ambition of this kind. I'm quite happy with the kind of role I am playing at the moment.
What's the dream that Mr. Arun Jaitley has today?
Well, I have a dream for my party coming to power. I have no dream for myself.
So thank you so much for talking to us. And this was Mr. Arun Jaitley talking to us this time on The Quest. We'll be coming back to you with another guest very quickly. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.